Hello, my name is Brian Shin, and today I'll be going on about how memory works. So I know for a fact that everyone in high school or college, one time I studied for that one test that made them get a 60% no matter how much they studied. Through that, we learned that how hours studying does not equate grades. So then how do we determine what our brains remember and what we forget? Today I'll be going over how memory is broken down to short-term and long-term memory and how our brain inputs it into our brain so that we can retain our information. I'll be going over three key facts: what exactly is short-term and long-term memory, how we use the information, and the best environment to focus to consolidate the memory you have. So my first bullet point is, what exactly is short-term and long-term memory? So basically, short-term memory is the temporary storage for information, while long-term memory is a more permanent style of information. So short-term and long-term memories are separated because of the duration and capacity. So the duration is the time it takes for a memory to decay, and capacity is the limit to how much information it can hold. These are the two distinguishing factors of long-term and short-term. For an example, if I was fixing a bike together, if it was in my short-term memory, then I'll forget how all the parts, like how all the screws, how all the different tire sets, sizes, all of those, I will forget them in maybe like a day or two because it hasn't consolidated. But if it was in my long-term memory, I'll remember each of the parts, where the parts go, what it does, how to put it back together, even after a week, a month has passed. So the clear distinction in duration of memory of capacity and duration is shown as my example of fixing a bike together. And for our second bullet point, how do we use this information in real life? So we always take tests in high school and college. We always need to remember stuff, and test taking is basically the best form of memorizing. It's active recall in a stressful environment. That's why med students always swear by flashcards, because it's the best way to memorize stuff. The best two ways are spaced repetition and active recall. So that would mean that you constantly try to memorize it over a given time period, and every time you slightly forget it, you keep testing it over and over again until it actually you can get it automatically. An example for this is when there's a test, there's always three things that happen. We can always remember something, and we can spot it immediately on the test. We either cram before every test and we just barely scrape by, or we forget everything in a week. So why does this happen? So this means that when you're searching and digging through information in your head and trying to solve a problem, you're digging through your long-term memory in a process called retrieval. And when you automatically spot a test answer and you automatically know the answer, that will be called a consolidated memory. And when you cram for a test, the information is barely in your head. That's short-term memory because you forget it in like a day or two. Basically, everything we recall but not remembering is like it's on the way to being a consolidated memory. But if we don't use it, we forget it because even basic tasks like driving a car, riding a bike, we forget it after years of not using it because our brain simply removes the information that is not important for us. So it's up to you to decide whether you want to remember what you took on the test by maybe taking bullet points, compiling the test answers, or anything to jog your memory back through spaced repetition and active recall. Now, my third bullet point is the best environment to study. So, one of the biggest factors when moving to a new dorm for me would be my environment. Can I study in that my dorm room well? And these have three details I want to go into. So, the sensory details: is the room too dark? Can you smell a bad smell in your room? Is there always music playing in the background that you don't like? All of these affect you negatively or positively depending on how you set it up. The second one would be distractions. Do you have a phone nearby that your brain links to dopamine and short-term rewards? It's gonna interrupt focus, and you can't focus on deep tasks that actually like help consolidate your memory. And the third is designing your own space. Doesn't matter if your room is tidy, messy, clean, as long as you know where everything is. If your pen is in reach of your hand, if there's a printer nearby so you don't have to go super far, or if there's music that you like that's playing, not some music that you hate, all these factors are what actually are important in your studying process. So for my conclusions, short-term memory is limited while long-term memory is built through repetition and constant use. Active recall and spaced repetitions are the best way to consolidate memory, and your environment and setting it up is way more important than your ability to consolidate memory. All right, that was it. Thank you very much. Bye bye.